I had been waiting for this dinner for weeks. My son, Daniel, was finally bringing home the woman he wanted to marry. He'd spoken about her endlessly, her beauty, her confidence, how she lit up every room. I wanted to believe that the girl he loved would embrace our family with warmth. I spent all day preparing the meal, polishing the silverware, and even pulling out the lace tablecloth my late mother had passed down to me. When the doorbell rang, I smoothed my dress nervously, hoping everything was perfect, and then she walked in. Claire, she was stunning, I'll give her that. Tall, slim, with carefully styled hair and a designer dress that looked like it came straight out of a Paris boutique. She hugged Daniel tightly, but only gave me a polite nod. There was something cold in her eyes, though her smile never faltered. "Mom, this is Claire," Daniel said with all the pride of a man in love. "Claire, this is my mother. It's a pleasure," she said, her voice smooth, but her eyes flickered over me quickly, judging, assessing. We all sat down at the table. I served the roasted chicken, potatoes, and fresh bread, all made from scratch. Daniel chatted excitedly about his work, and I listened, filling glasses and passing plates. Claire responded politely, but I noticed how she glanced at her phone under the table. Her attention divided. Then it happened. Claire leaned slightly toward her phone and spoke softly in French. She must have thought no one else could understand her. "L'Est provincial. Son style SDA passé Daniel me right mieux qu'une mille repareil." Translation: she's so provincial. Her style is outdated. Daniel deserves better than a mother like her. I froze. The knife in my hand hovered above the bread. My heart pounded in my chest as if I had been slapped. Daniel didn't notice. He kept talking about his upcoming promotion, his eyes glowing with excitement. Claire nodded along, her lips curled ever so slightly, enjoying her private joke. The sting was unbearable. Every word cut deep, not because she criticized my dress or my manners, but because she dared to belittle me in my own home. While sitting across from the son I had raised with every sacrifice I could afford. But I didn't let it show. I had lived in Paris for a year in my 20s. I had fallen in love with the language, taken classes, and still read French novels now and then to keep my fluency alive. Yet no one here, not even Daniel, knew the extent of it. I had kept that part of me tucked away, like a small treasure from another life, so I smiled. I smiled as though I hadn't understood a single cruel word. I offered her more potatoes, asked her about her studies, her family, her dreams. And she answered with that same polished charm, oblivious to the fact that I was peeling back her mask with every passing second. Inside, though, I felt something shift. The warmth I had carried into this dinner cooled into steel. This was no innocent slip. Claire thought she was clever, hiding her contempt in another language. She thought she could insult me to my face and I would be too ignorant to know. But I knew. Oh, I knew. And as I watched her laugh at something Daniel said, squeezing his hand as if she already owned him, I made a quiet vow to myself. She might think she held the upper hand now, but the day would come when she would learn exactly who I was, and just how much I understood. That night, after Daniel and Claire left, I sat alone at the dining table, staring at the half-finished plates and the crumpled napkins. The house was quiet, but inside me, a storm raged. Her words echoed in my head, cruel and sharp. "Son style SDA passé. Daniel may right mieux qu'une mère repareil." Her style is outdated. Daniel deserves better than a mother like her. I wanted to cry. I wanted to shout. But instead, I cleared the table in silence, my movement steady, almost mechanical. I had lived long enough to know that not every battle needed to be fought in the moment. Sometimes silence was the strongest weapon. When I was younger, I would have lashed out. I wasn't always this calm, measured woman. I had dreams once, dreams of becoming a writer, traveling the world, maybe even teaching languages. But life had different plans. When my husband passed away unexpectedly, I was left to raise Daniel alone. Every penny went toward his schooling, every hour of work toward keeping the lights on. My dreams took a back seat. Yet, despite it all, I never let bitterness consume me. Watching Daniel grow into a kind, ambitious man was my reward. He was everything I had worked for. And now, standing at the threshold of his future, I feared he was stepping into the arms of someone who didn't deserve him. The next few weeks confirmed my unease. Claire's mask slipped in small, subtle ways. She corrected Daniel in front of me, as though he were a child. She dismissed our family traditions, rolling her eyes when I suggested we keep the Christmas dinner simple and homemade. Daniel and I will probably travel to Europe during the holidays, she said once, with a tone that carried the finality of a decree. She wanted to rewrite everything, our rhythms, our rituals, even Daniel's laughter, which became more restrained in her presence. And yet, Daniel couldn't see it. Love had blinded him. He looked at her with the same adoration I once reserved for his father. My heart ached at the thought that he might be building a life with someone whose love was a performance, not a truth. Still, I held my tongue. I never let on that I understood the French comments she sprinkled in casually when she thought I wasn't listening. Once, she muttered on the phone, "Us amazin' est si modesty. J'aurais bientôt changé. Her house is so modest. I'll change everything soon." I swallowed my anger, smiled politely, and let her think she was safe in her arrogance. Because deep down, I knew something important. People, like Claire, always reveal themselves. The trick is to be patient enough to let them. One evening, after they had visited, I sat by the window with an old journal. I flipped through its pages filled with fragments of poems I had written in my 20s, many in French. As I traced the faded ink, I felt my resolve harden. I hadn't lost my strength. It had only changed form. It was quieter now, sharper, waiting for the right moment. I closed the journal and whispered into the dark, as though speaking to my late husband. She thinks I don't understand, but I do. And when the time is right, she will understand me. From that night forward, I no longer felt like a victim of her cruelty. I was the keeper of a secret, my fluency, my patience, my unshakable knowledge of who she really was. I would protect my son, not with angry words or rash decisions, but with careful timing. Claire thought she was playing a clever game, but I was already planning how it would end. Time passed, and with each family gathering, Claire grew bolder. At first, her remarks in French were subtle. Snide comments about my cooking, little jabs at the way I dressed, or mocking the way I decorated my home. But as the months went by, she stopped whispering and spoke them more freely, certain no one in my family could possibly understand. And she was right, except for me. I endured every word silently, storing them away like stones in my pocket. Heavy, yes, but also useful. Each insult was another reminder that patience would pay off. The opportunity finally came when Daniel announced they were having an engagement dinner. He was glowing with happiness when he asked if I would host it at my home. "It would mean the world to me if our families could gather where I grew up," he said, his eyes full of love and hope. How could I refuse? I prepared for weeks. Every detail mattered. The polished wood floors, the fresh flowers from the garden, the table set with fine china. My heart ached with bittersweet pride. I wanted this night to be perfect for Daniel, even if my opinion of his fiancée had soared long ago. When the evening arrived, guests filled my home with laughter and conversation. Daniel looked radiant, holding Claire's hand as though she were already his wife. My relatives were kind and welcoming, eager to embrace her. She played her part well, smiling sweetly, complimenting the food, nodding as though she respected the stories being shared. But I saw it in her eyes, the same condescension I had witnessed before. Sure enough, midway through the evening, as plates were being cleared, Claire leaned over to one of her friends who had flown in from France. "Regard cette table, tellement ringard. Sam recrote vraiment qu'il est élégante. Quand nos serons mariés, Daniel ne reviendra jamais dans cette ville maison." Look at this table, so tacky. His mother really thinks she's elegant. When we're married, Daniel will never come back to this old house. Her friend giggled, and Claire smirked, sipping her wine like a queen sitting on her throne. The words burned, but this time, I didn't just swallow them. I felt a calmness settle over me, as if the moment I had been waiting for had finally arrived. My hands stopped trembling, my fear dissolved. It was time. I stood raising my glass. "If I may," I said soft, "I'd like to offer a toast." The room quieted. Faces turned toward me, expectant, warm, loving. Daniel smiled at me, pride shining in his eyes. Claire leaned back in her chair, smug, convinced that she had won, that she had carved her place firmly into our family. I looked at her, steady and unflinching, and then I began to speak, in French. "Je voudrais remercier tout le monde du travail venu ce soir. Mais avant tout, j'aimerais répéter les paroles exactes que Claire vient de dire du propos de moi, de ma maison, et de cette famille. I would like to thank everyone for coming tonight. But above all, I would like to repeat the exact words Claire just said about me, about my home, and about this family. The room fell into stunned silence. Claire's smile froze, her wine glass clinking against the table as her hand trembled. And slowly, deliberately, I translated every insult she had spoken over the past months. Her disdain for my provincial style. Her laughter at my old-fashioned traditions. Her plan to keep Daniel away from his family. Gasps rippled around the room. My relatives exchanged horrified looks. Daniel's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to anger, his face paling as he turned to stare at the woman beside him. Claire stammered, her cheeks burning. I didn't mean it like that. But it was too late. The mask had shattered. And for the first time, Claire realized that the woman she thought was ignorant, outdated, and powerless had understood everything all along. I lifted my glass higher, my voice calm but firm. To family, I said, still in French, but this time with warmth that belonged only to the people who truly mattered. The toast rang like a verdict. And I knew the game was over. The silence after my toast was heavier than stone. You could hear the ticking of the old clock in the hallway, its rhythm pounding like a drumbeat in everyone's chest. Daniel stared at Claire as though he had never seen her before. His lips parted, but no words came out. His eyes, once full of love, were clouded with shock and betrayal. Claire tried to laugh it off, her voice sharp and brittle. "It was just a joke," she said in English, waving her hand as though her cruelty could be erased with a careless flick. "I didn't mean any of it seriously." French humor doesn't always translate well, but no one laughed. Her friend from France looked down at her plate, ashamed. My relatives whispered in disbelief, shaking their heads. Daniel's voice finally broke through the tension, low and trembling with anger. "You mocked my mother. You mocked this home. You thought I wouldn't care." Claire's eyes darted around, searching for an ally, but found none. She reached for Daniel's hand, but he pulled it away, his jaw tightening. "Daniel, you know I love you." "I didn't mean." "Stop." His voice was firm, the kind I had only heard when he was truly hurt. "Don't, just stop." She sat back, her face pale, her composure unraveling. For the first time, the power shifted entirely. I remained calm, my hands folded neatly in my lap. I had no need to argue, no need to raise my voice. The truth had already done the work for me. Dinner ended quickly after that. Guests excused themselves, murmuring sympathy as they left. Daniel stayed behind, pacing the living room, his face buried in his hands. Claire tried once more to salvage her dignity, whispering apologies, promising it was all a misunderstanding. But Daniel finally looked at her with cold clarity. "If you can't respect my mother, then you can't respect me. This isn't love." Her eyes filled with tears, perhaps of regret, or perhaps of losing the comfortable future she thought she was securing. She left without another word, her heels clicking sharply against the wooden floor. When the door closed, silence returned. Daniel turned to me, his expression heavy with guilt. "Mom, why didn't you tell me sooner?" I placed my hand gently on his shoulder. "Because some lessons, Daniel, can't be taught, they must be seen." His eyes softened, and he hugged me tightly, as though he were the little boy who once clung to me after a nightmare. "Thank you," he whispered. That night, after he went upstairs to rest, I sat once more at the dining table, the same place where the betrayal had begun months ago. But this time, I felt no storm inside me, only peace. Claire had underestimated me. She thought age dulled intelligence, that sacrifice erased dignity, that motherhood meant weakness. She thought I was blind, deaf, ignorant. But she was wrong. I sipped the last of my wine and whispered to the quiet house, almost as if speaking to myself. Never underestimate a woman who has lived, sacrificed, and learned. I may have been silent, but I was never blind. And with that, I let the evening's bitterness slip away, replaced by something sweeter, liberation. Not because I had humiliated Claire, but because I had shown Daniel the truth before it was too late. That was the sweetest revenge of all.